Hello everyone and welcome back to my opinion. Another great game in the IPL, this one being between the Royal Challengers Bangalore and the Kolkata Knight Riders. RCB winning this game by 3 wickets with 4 balls to spare. And what intrigued me about this game was that uh, the last time we saw a game played at this venue, it was between the Punjab Kings and RCB, a game which saw 400 runs being scored in total and Punjab Kings chasing down a 200 plus target with quite some ease. That's who had won over to spare. So, considering how that game went, I think the side batting first in this game would have felt like they had to post preferably a 200 plus total to be competitive. We saw that that wasn't the case in this game, and I think that that real intent shown by the KKR batsmen, and certainly I think that was because their decision making was influenced by the fact that they thought they had to get that 200 plus total, and also some good bowling by the RCB. That didn't go hand in hand for KKR, and that's why I feel like they achieved the total that they did. But I'll get to that as I get further into the video. And regarding the starting 11s of both teams, RCB going in with an unchanged 11, and for KKR one change being Tim Southee in for Shivam Mavi. And it is unfair to compare both those two. Certainly, with the pedigree and experience that Tim Southee offers, like he would have been quite a great inclusion, and he was with his 3 for 20 in his 4 overs. But I was still surprised with the swap because I know Shivam Mavi, in my view, didn't have a great game against CSK. He bought a good third over and didn't really finish things off well in his fourth over. And in his first 2 overs, I was surprised he only went for 17 runs because he didn't, in my view, bowl well in those at all. And despite that, though, I think that KKR won their first game, and you wouldn't really want, even if they didn't win the first game, you wouldn't really want to change things too soon. And you've paid eight crores for him. You'd want to invest in him for quite a few games. For that money, you should be playing every game. And also the fact is that they're going to have to play an an Indian seamer anyway, because and you probably know what I'm going to say here. With the way Andre Russell struggled in that last over, I think that I was surprised he bowled 4 overs the previous game. I think that could happen once in a few games at a stretch, but I personally wouldn't bowl him more than 2 or 3, mostly 2. I personally think they should focus on keeping Andre Russell, the batsman, fit. So I think that they'd probably have to play him as a fourth seamer, and the only way they can do that is playing an Indian seamer, along with Umesh Yadav and either Pat Cummins or Tim Southee. So, yeah, I think that I will get onto that as. In fact, I may as well just talk about it now. I just feel like, as I said, he was expensive today, yes, but I think that more than his actual bowling figures, it's the fact that he did struggle, especially in his last over, with all the muscle mass he's carrying. It's not sustainable if you're making him bowl 3 or 4 overs every game. For me, he should bowl maximum 2, and if he's doing that, then he can't be the third seamer. So, and it's an issue because he's the best death bowler in that side, but he can't bowl more than 2 overs in a game so that he can keep fit. So that is an issue certainly, and I don't know how they're gonna have to play an overseas an Indian seamer, but it only heightens that risk in the death overs for KKR. And those are the 11s, and RCB won the toss, chose to field first. And to be honest, look, as far as the innings of individual batsmen, there isn't much for me to talk about at all. In fact, the only innings of any note, you could say the only notable, or the biggest partnership and the most influential partnership on the innings, was actually that 27-run partnership between Varun Chakravarti and Umesh Yadav for the 10th wicket. And the highest score in the innings was Andre Russell, 25 of 18, trying to attempt the improbable really recovery for KKR. And if he had probably come off and was batting even for a few more deliveries, then you may think with what happened that let's say if they got even 140, KKR may have actually won the game. So I think that you could say the improbable comeback was still on the cards with Russell batting, but he was dismissed by an excellent piece of bowling from Harshal Patel for 25 of 18. Hasselblad having an excellent day with the ball, 2 for 11 in his 4 overs, including 2 wicket maidens in his first 2 overs. Hasaranga with an outstanding performance, 4 for 20 in their 4 overs. I think that when you saw these two bowl in the previous game, yes, they went for a bit of runs. I thought 1 for 36 from Harshal, considering that the opposition are chasing 200, wasn't so bad. I know Hasaranga went for 40 in his 4 overs, but I'm saying, again, when you saw him bowl, even when you saw him go for runs, you didn't really get the feeling that it was the end of the world. And I think with both of those two, their returns today, you saw kind of the reason why that was. Siraj 1 for 25 and 4, didn't really bowl the pressure overs. I think was helped by the fall of wickets, but good figures for him. Akash Steve, a bit of a weird one because the wickets were really good. He did bowl some good deliveries, but he also gave a lot of runs and 3 for 45 and 3.5, and for 128 all out in 18.5, you'd think that it would be a bit weird to see a 45, someone that went for at 11.73 per over. But I think he bowled better than what his figures show. And yeah, apart from that, Shahbaz Ahmed going for 16, David Willey none for 7 and 2, and everyone bowled up pretty much. So now that I talk about RCB's bowling, I'm going to talk about the KKR's kind of the attitude of their players in this innings. As I said, this game was not really the game that was the same one in terms of the roadmap of how the Punjab Kings RCB game was played. And KKR could have gone about this in 2 ways, I think, if they wanted to get a big score or a bigger score relative to the surface. So the way they went was how RCB actually in the game against Punjab had an opening partnership of 50 or 45, so quite a sedate one, and then they kicked on afterwards. And I think that KKR didn't want to have that sedate start. They thought if they capitalize in that phase, maybe then if they get even more runs, or rather, if they get a great run from the other overs while not starting off sedately, they'll get an even bigger total. Now, what I'm saying about that is RCB didn't lose that game because they didn't get enough runs on the board. They lost the game because the bowling wasn't good enough. And considering that, if KKR had followed the RCB template, started off sedately but then capitalizing the other overs, they would have certainly got more than what they got. And I just think that the things didn't go well for them considering the intent, which probably wasn't needed, especially I thought, considering after Nitish Rana's innings of 10 off 5 balls, you'd think that, right, with Shreyas Iyer still in there, maybe they can consolidate a bit. And then Shreyas Iyer plays that shot off Hasaranga right to Faf du Plessis. That was the point where it really stamped down that KKR were in trouble. I thought with Shreyas Iyer still batting, things would still be recoverable. But after Shreyas Iyer got out, I thought, right, that's when they're really in trouble. And I think that they could have, if they got 140, you could have think they would have a better chance of winning the game, considering how that they almost defended the score that they got now. So, I did not too much to say about this KKR innings. I just think that the too much intent, which wasn't really needed, considering I understand you could say the fact that it wasn't too apparent, and I do get this, it wasn't too apparent that the game was going to go the way it went because RCB got a sedate start, so did KKR, especially in the first 3 overs. So you'd think it's going to be similar. So again, I don't blame them for that, but especially when they were losing wickets, they kept on losing wickets, even though rather than consolidating, it didn't help their cause. And I think with the way that RCB went, as I said, even if they'd used that same template, they'd have got quite a competitive score on the surface. And even this one almost proved to be match winning. So that was on their innings. I just think that their intents are going along with how well RCB bowled. It just didn't really go well for KKR. And you thought, look, for KKR to defend the score, they should do exactly the same that they did in the previous game, apart from the last 3 overs, of course. It's just the fact that with them and with the Rajasthan Roars as well, and at least us, the Rajasthan Roars have a bowler like Trent Bolt that while in the last 2 years you could say his death bowling hasn't been too great, you still wouldn't mind him bowling at the death. And but for KKR, the best death bowler, as I said, is Andre Russell, and even him, you'd say right now, I would say he's a maximum 2 over bowler. He could bowl 4 overs at the odd time, but even bowling through, even the moment, even when he gets to a third over, I would consider it as a bit of a risk. And so I just think that they had to do the thing which they're going to have to do for this entire tournament. It's going to be a marathon, considering they're just going to have to seize the starts and middle phase of the innings, just completely destroy the opposition and make sure it doesn't actually get to the death overs. And this is the first IPL season, I think, in quite a well. Again, I started watching from 2011, and for me, this is the first IPL season where there is a side. You could say that the bowling attack of Rising Pune Supergiants in 2016 was very average, and you would think that maybe they had to do that as well. Even then, they didn't have the personnel to take advantage of that starting phase, I would say. But you look at this one where literally all the goods they have in the start and middle phase of the innings, and then at the death it just crumbles. And so for this, it was a fairly routine job for KK. I think for routine, I mean the thing they're going to have to do the whole tournament, just strangle the opposition, get wickets, just bowl them out. And certainly with the way that things started off, especially with Anuj Rawat, Faf du Plessis and Virat Kohli, there was not much they could have done about the dismissals. Virat Kohli, maybe you could say, was fishing outside off stump slightly, but even then it wasn't really. You couldn't really even call it away from his body too much. It was still a ball that was quite close to the stumps. It just swung away. And I would say that, yes, you can maybe say he fished at the ball slightly, especially when it was going well. It was a bit disappointing. But at the same time, it wasn't a bad ball to get out to. And the Umesh Yadav, Tim Southee were absolutely brilliant. I think Umesh Yadav, these 2 games that we've seen from him has been better than the entire 2018 season combined for me. Because I don't send him in 2 games, but even when he bowled well in the power play, you thought he was still going to go runs in the for runs. But I just thought that in this, he's just been brilliant. I just think that 2 for 20 in his 4 and 2 for 16 in his 2, bowling high class. This is the best I've ever seen Umesh Yadav bowl. Honestly, I hope he can continue for this tournament. And he's going to have to, because as I said, KKR, for them, the only phase of the innings that they already recognise are the start and the middle. The end overs, they do not want to go there at all. And for Tim Southee, 3 for 20 and 4 overs. I think that it pretty much for all 3 of the first dismissals, not much the batsman could have done. Maybe Virat Kohli fishing it outside off stump, but as I said, it was a good ball to get out to either way. Anuj Rawat was dismissed for a 2-ball duck by Umesh Yadav. Jaffer, the ball just seamed away. Faf du Plessis, he'd hit Tim Southee for a boundary, I think 1 or 2 balls before then. So Tim Southee bowled a ball that was just slightly swinging away late. Didn't swing too much, but just slightly around that middle, kind of on the middle stump. It came from middle, kind of from the leg stump to the middle stump. Well, not too much, but fairly on that middle stump line. And squared Faf du Plessis up, and he was caught by Rahane at that point. And I think that dismissal really showed how good of an inclusion Tim Southee is in this team. And I'm completely not surprised that he got that kind of a wicket at all. And RCB were a bit kind of in the doldrums. I think that the problem for them was that if you're actually looking at this lineup without a Glenn Maxwell, they want Dinesh Karthik to be batting in the last few overs of the innings, and they showed this game that they will do whatever it takes to make sure he doesn't walk out a bit earlier. But while doing that, I mean, look, for David Willey in England, he likes to, or rather, he usually bats quite a few times at the top of the order, takes on the bowling, and whenever he bats, he takes on the bowling. And I guess going from that situation to get to here, at number 4, 18 of 28, yes, it was actually quite a decent innings considering the situation, but I'm saying that it would have been chucking him in the deep end a bit, because from that situation to here would have been a bit difficult to manage. And Safane Rutherford, especially considering the spinners to bowl in the game-breaking spinners really in Narayan and Chakravarti, with most of the West Indian players, you wouldn't really say they're too well versed in playing spin, let alone the mystery spinners that everyone's struggling against. And I think that I actually thought, how would he go? Would KKR be able to get these 2 out fairly quickly and start a procession? But I think that with how these two played, I think that look, strike rate of 64 and strike rate of 70 for both these two. David Willey 18 of 28 and Shafin Rutherford 28 of 40. You'll be looking. You usually look at those innings and think that they're quite slow, but in reality, that was the partnership to steady the ship and really gave them a platform to start thinking about winning the game. I just think that it was damage limitation at the start of pretty much the whole of that partnership. Luckily for them, Chakravarti had an off day, gave 33 runs in his 4 overs, which would have been good in any other if it was kind of a high scoring game, but in this case it probably wasn't great. And this finally he's had an off game, so I'm sure from the next game he'll start doing what he usually does. And I think that partnership really steadied the ship. And after those two, Shahbaz Ahmed was magnificent, 27 or 23 sixes. And considering how they stumbled across the finish line, if he hadn't played his knock, then they probably would have lost this game. And I think that they were helped, as I said, by Chakravarti having an off day, Andre Russell being just going around the park, and also for KKR, once again having a bit of some issues when he's bowling in terms of seemingly injuries. You got to think whether he'll play the next game or not, and if he plays the next game, would he be anywhere near, well, would he be like 70-80% fit? Because with all that muscle mass that he carries, as I said, for me, after the 2 over mark, bowling under Russell was a huge risk. And in the end, it was quite an entertaining, thrilling game to watch, really. But RCB getting over the line. And I think a few things here for KKR, as I said. I just think this is a problem that started the moment Sheldon Jackson was going to be the keeper. Because he wasn't in my starting 11 at first, because I thought he didn't really offer much, not batting at the top of the order, just being a keeper at number 7. It just didn't really offer much for me, considering a side that struggles with their death bowling, and even then, their best death bowler can hardly bowl, and so you'd want another seamer to play as a third seamer. And so Sheldon Jackson did not fit into my side. Because of how well he's kept, and I think they prefer him to keep to give security to especially the 2 spinners, and they wouldn't want to drop Billings because he provides that dynamic player at number 5, also with Russell at number 6. I think that it's a bit of an issue in terms of trying to fit in that third seamer. And so unfairly for Ajinkya Rahane, with whatever he did in the first game, and as I said, my favourite signing of the season, because of the situation KKR have put themselves in terms of preferring Sheldon Jackson to keep, which as much security as he provides, if he bats at number 7, he gives nothing for the team in terms of batting, and he has to give something in terms of batting. So he's probably going to have to open the innings with Rahane out of the side, and we haven't really seen him bat in the IPL at all. Certainly I haven't seen him bat in the IPL. Apparently he's been in quite some good form domestically. It'll be interesting to see how he goes in this tournament. And if he goes well, then you could then with that third seamer there, things are a bit more sorted out. But if he doesn't go well, that's a bit of kind of an issue, because who are they going to get in? Because he's the keeper that they prefer to keep to the spinners. And if Sam Billings has to keep, he's a good keeper, but by no fault of his own, he wouldn't probably be too well versed in keeping against these kind of spinners. So that's something they're gonna have to think about. As I said, for me, I think they should either play Mavi or Rafiq Salam. I actually thought that they'd play Rafiq Salam instead of Umesh Yadav before this tournament started. I didn't think Umesh Yadav would bowl this well, so certainly that's kind of a place for him in the side. Umesh Yadav, Tim Southee or Pat Cummins, and also with Shivam Mavi should probably be their 3 seamers, with Russell as a 4th seamer. Death bowling looks really weak. I mean, if Russell goes round the park, then this side's, as I said, they probably shouldn't even be thinking about death bowling in my view. It'll be a constant fear, but at the same time, they have got it with the movement available pretty much in all the games being played in this part of the world. No matter if the track's batting friendly or bowling friendly, the faster bowlers will get movement up top. If Umesh Yadav and Tim Southee or Pat Cummins, I'm going to get to see who I think should play. And then they've got the spinners. They're going to have to, as I said, game-breaking spinners, and plus an Umesh Yadav and a Tim Southee or Pat Cummins bowling well at the top. That's going to have to be the way they're going to go. And regarding who should play, especially considering Tim Southee or Pat Cummins. Now, in terms of batting at number 7, you'll probably get more from Pat Cummins and Tim Southee, but you're not playing them in the side for their batting, you're playing them for their bowling. I just feel like, personally, I think I'd play Southee, because I know it depends, because in for example the Pune track where Rajasthan versus SRH happened, you saw that when bowlers hit that length with pace, things happened for them, and honestly Prasidh Krishna's power play was made because of that, and Umran Malik's resurgence was made because of that. So in that case, maybe a Pat Cummins, but in this case, I thought a Tim Southee would have been a much more preferable bowler than a Pat Cummins would have been. I just think that the reason why I'm saying is this, right? I just don't think he would have got 3 for 20 in 4 overs in this situation. I just think that in terms of really we've seen him do this in Test cricket, obviously, but I'm saying that I just think that in terms of for example, in this particular game, Umesh Yadav, Tim Southee, I think with both of you with Tim Southee, obviously you get a much reduced pace than what Pat Cummins does, but I certainly think you'll get more kind of this floaty swing, which you wouldn't get from Pat Cummins. You probably get a bit more of the hard length stuff, which would work in a condition such as Pune, which I think Pat Cummins should probably play in that case. But certainly, if you kind of want to offer more security in terms of these kind of situations, I know Pat Cummins wouldn't do a bad job, but maybe it's just I'm just completely not surprised that Tim Southee bowled this way, and I just think, especially after this, I don't think Pat Cummins is going to emulate this kind of bowling figures in this kind of a situation. And I think that, especially considering the way that KKR needs to just completely destroy the opposition batting from the start and the middle overs, I just think that on each kind of wickets, both of those two would have their own strengths. And so, yeah, I think that in wickets like Pune, Pat Cummins, sure. But in these kind of situations, I actually think Tim Southee, despite he offers less with the bat, I actually think that him bowling with Umesh Yadav in this game would have been far more potent than Pat Cummins bowling with Umesh Yadav in this game. I know maybe a bit of a controversial opinion, and that is just my view. I just think that it would be quite an easy decision to say before the tournament, I'd say sure, Pat Cummins or Tim Southee. But after he's bowled today in this game, I actually think, considering the characteristics we saw when he was bowling, he would have got more out of this game than a Pat Cummins would have in the same situation, in my view. So yeah, I just think in a Pune track, Pat Cummins, but in this case, Tim Southee. And I just think I think they'll veer more to Pat Cummins, certainly because of, as I said, the extra pace hitting the hard length, and even the situation, if he also delivers in this kind of situation, I'm sure they'll also go for Pat Cummins. But even then, regarding both their death bowling, Tim Southee has a better record than Pat Cummins overall at the death, despite the fact that he still does go for a few runs. I think that, as I said, the thing that Pat Cummins did really well in the T20 World Cup is bowl with that kind of that tennis ball bounce when he could do that. I think that certainly he, despite the fact that the surfaces will probably be on the quicker side, I think he will have his opportunity at times to do that. But as I said, even more than thinking about the death, as I said, there's no point in this team thinking about the death. They are going to go for runs. And whether Pat Cummins or Tim Southee bowls at the start, they're going to have to be economical and pick up wickets because, as I said, this team is pretty much, as far as the bowling, it is a top-loaded team. Just dominate the start and the middle, and whatever happens to the death, even if they hit 40 odd in the last 3 overs, they'll get 130. Like the opposition will get 130. That'll be KKR's game plan. A high-risk game plan, but let's see how that goes. And for RCB, I'm actually not surprised they won this game. I think, look, I think there was a bit more of a level playing field because RCB didn't have Glenn Maxwell and Josh Hazelwood available. If they were playing, I think there would have been quite some daylight between these two sides. Okay, KKR's top four is good, but you're comparing that to a top four with Faf du Plessis, Virat Kohli, and Glenn Maxwell in it. So clearly, with no fault of the KKR's top four, you'd think that on its day, RCB's top four would be that much better. And they've got a Dinesh Karthik as well. They've got the sixth bowling option in Shahbaz Ahmed, who, yes, you could say probably isn't a great one, but then again, with all the players available for KKR, their sixth bowling option will... I don't consider Venkatesh Iyer to be a sixth bowling option, honestly, because he hardly bowls. He bowled one over today, 1 for 10, but he hardly bowls, so I don't really consider him as a bowling option as of now. And for Andre Russell, he bowled to bowl 2 overs max, and you probably wouldn't want him to bowl in most cases because you're just so afraid that he'll get injured. So I think that if you're looking at the 11s overall, RCB seem to be, for me, especially with the likes of Maxwell and Hazelwood on the side, will only improve them. And yeah, I just think that if this was played with the 2 Australians in the RCB's 11, then I think that this would have been quite that bit more daylight between these two sides. And certainly, if Maxwell played instead of Shafin Rutherford, you may get a bit more assurance that he'll be better against the spinners. But Shafin Rutherford did well today considering the situation, but certainly Maxwell would offer that more assurance. David Willey did well in this game. But I think with Josh Hazelwood back in the side, you've got Hasaranga, Harsha Patel, and Josh Hazelwood as 3 of your bowlers. That certainly looks quite good. If Mohammad Siraj doesn't have to bowl the death too often, just hits the seam at the top, then maybe it'll go well for him. And Akashdeep, a bit expensive. Let's see how we go. So that's RCB. I'm not surprised RCB won today. I think it would have been even more of kind of even more daylight between these two teams had the 2 Australians in RCB's roster played this game. And yeah, tomorrow CSK versus the Lucknow Super Giants. Both these teams have lost their first game. Let's see how it goes. And personally, I just think that you know what? I actually don't want to make too many adjustments. I actually don't remember where the other thing is. Okay. It's at the Brabant Stadium, which I can't remember whether it was a kind of a run-scoring pitch or not. I think it was. So let's see how things go there. I thought I could predict how that would go, but certainly the Lucknow Super Giants seem stronger at this point in time, especially they have more difference makers for me with the ball. And if those kind of if they're I still don't think Jason Holder, Marcus Stoinis will be playing for tomorrow's game. So if when they have those 2 to form the full spine in their batting out, they really look like a formidable kind of top 7 that they have. So certainly Lucknow have the advantage, but let's see how things go. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and please share this video with your friends. And remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?